Welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast, featuring advice and interviews about athlete branding. Learn how marketing, public relations, and broadcasting can grow your brand. We also have special episodes to talk about recent news, events, and anything in the world of sports. The podcast is sponsored by Pliable, a versatile marketing, PR, and broadcasting company that identifies opportunities and creates tailored content for its clients. Now it's time to roll. Here's your host, Greg Glynn.
All right, and thank you very much, and welcome inside the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. Greg Glynn with you here today for our episode where we have a tremendous guest. I'm honored to be joined by our guest today who has made time, especially even on a game day, and very appreciative of that, and that is the head coach of the Quinnipiac University men's ice hockey team, Rand Pecknold, the all-time winningest coach at Quinnipiac and ranks third among all Division I coaches all-time in wins with more than 550. Rand, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Greg.
Absolutely. And I wanted to talk, too, because obviously listeners may know that my broadcasting career started here at Quinnipiac. Interesting story where Duncan Fletcher was kind of doing the color at the time, and he was, talking up there, and he realized that I actually was writing for U.S. College Hockey Magazine at the time, and he said, "You're probably in a much better place to be doing this than I am." And he invited me up, and I got the chance to work with Bill Schweitzer, and I got the chance of a lifetime because he was such a great mentor to me. And obviously, you also kind of brought me under your wing as the coach, and I felt a part of the team. And I've always remembered that, and I wanted to thank you for that.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I do remember one of your first interviews, too. I always at Northford. It was you've come a long way since those days. But no, that was fun. It was great. It was great that you got that experience at Quinnipiac, and this obviously has grown into your career,
Yep.
or branched out in certain different areas of career.
Yep, and it's really given me a launch pad, and I appreciate it very much so. So I wanted to talk about how my broadcasting career obviously started here at Quinnipiac, but today we want to talk with you, and I want to understand how your career evolved dating back to even your time as a player at Lawrence Academy, and whether or not you had, playing professionally on your radar or coaching. And talk to me about your kind of experience growing up.
Well, when I got out of college, I went to Connecticut College, which is Division III. The D3 was a little different back then. It was better, basically, in that you didn't have as many Division I teams. You probably had almost, I don't know if it was a third, but it was significantly less Division I teams. So there was a lot of good players that ended up in the Division III route. There's no real Division II hockey. And I finished up, and I looked into a little bit about going over to maybe play in Europe somewhere, but I wasn't good enough to make any money. So I moved on. But I get into coaching. Like, I never really thought about being a coach, and I just kind of fell into it. My objective was always to go to law school and be a lawyer. And then, I was kind of, I would say floundering a little bit once I got out of college. I didn't know what you're young, and I didn't know exactly what I want to do. But that was kind of what my plan was. Eventually, I'll go to law school. I didn't want to go right away. And then out of the blue, I got a call from my coach at Connecticut College, Doug Roberts, who had played in the NHL, and he was great to me. And he's like, "Hey, my assistant just randomly left. Do you want to come in, and be my assistant? It's a 2-year window. Doesn't pay a lot. There's not a lot of options, but you get a free master's." And I was I think I thought enough about it, but I was like, sure. And honestly, even when I went, it was more, I still didn't go to do it because I thought I was going to be a hockey coach. I just thought, hey, something to do. And I really liked Doug, or coach as I call him. And, I could get a master's out of it. And while I'm trying to sort my life out, I might as well get my master's under my belt. And then, it was like 3 days into coaching, and I'm like, oh, my God, I loved it. And, and that's, the rest is kind of history, how my path kind of went.
That was pretty good history.
Yeah. It's worked out pretty well. I mean, obviously, my first year at Quinnipiac was a tough one, but we're practicing at midnight, and I made $6,700, and I had a teaching job, and, it was crazy, like, that first year. Actually, even crazy the first 3 or 4 or 5 years. But it's funny how life works, and, I feel fortunate that it's worked out well for me.
Yeah, being at the right place at the right time for sure. And then I wanted to talk, when you got into coaching, like you said, you weren't really thinking about becoming a coach. But one of the things that I've noticed is that you've kind of focused on values that are important to you as a coach and to creating a culture here at Quinnipiac. And that's something you've obviously done for now more than 25 years. Talk to me about being a coach and creating that culture. That's something really hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's you can't just snap your fingers. Let's have a good culture. You know, there's a lot of things that go into it, and honestly, in my early years, I didn't put as much stock into it. I just didn't. So it's something I learned as we went along. And Benny Sire was with me for 12 years, and I give Benny a lot of credit. He pushed me a little bit to that and said, hey, we need to get a better culture here. We have good players.
Yeah.
But I think for us to win at the national level, we have to have a lot of selfless players. And that's hard for these 22-year-old kids to do, because they've grown up their whole lives. They've always been the best player on their team.
Yep.
And one of the reasons they're good is they're selfish. They hold on to the puck, they keep it, they make play, at young ages.
Yeah.
They do. It's, I'm watching my kids go through, like, you need to have some selfishness to you to be a really good hockey player. So, but for us, to compete, with all the big boys who get all the first rounders and et cetera, we need to be selfless and have a lot of guys make sacrifices for the betterment of the team. So I couldn't give you a 3-minute answer on how to build culture, because it's probably a 4-hour answer. Like, it's just there's so many things that go into it. But I think in the end, it's about recruiting the right type of kid that fits what we want here at Quinnipiac. And Joe Dumbe and Mike Corbett do a great job with that. Before Billy Riga, he just left, went to Holy Cross, became the head coach there. But they did a really good job of getting the right type of kid that fit well into our system.
Yeah. That's another thing I think that speaks volumes to what you do, because you've brought in so many of your former players that had the culture. They obviously understand it. I think that's a unique thing that you've been able to do, so that you can almost carry that culture throughout the entire team, even down to the assistant coaches.
Yeah, it helps. I mean, you don't have to have an alum be an assistant. It's nice to have, I think, to have one on staff of the head coach or the two assistants. I think it's nice to have one of the three, which is what we have right now. But it doesn't have to be that way, And again, it's about getting good people that are going to work hard and be committed. And my staff now and in recent years, even I mentioned Benny, but Reed Cashman and some of the other guys I've had have been just outstanding coaches. Like, there's a lot of things I think I've done well in my career at Quinnipiac. There's certainly some things I've done poorly. I try to fix those things, but maybe the best thing I've done is hire good assistant coaches.
There you go.
That's probably my one slot. I've always had a really good staff, and that's important. It's and then I need to sometimes make sure I back away and give them opportunities to succeed and let them have the whistle and let them do things on their own too. You can't control everything, and if you have good assistants, you got to make sure you utilize them properly.
Absolutely. And then obviously you were the 2016 Spencer Penrose National Coach of the Year. Same year you guys go to the second national championship. Can you talk about what it means to the program to play in a national championship?
Yeah, I mean, it's a unique experience both times. I mean, the first one was crazy. I vividly remember that first year, that 2012-13 season, when we got voted number 1 in the country, and for the first time ever, it was unbelievable. Really, as a coach and our players and our alums and our president and everybody was I think everybody was in a little bit of shock. I remember President Leahy coming in to talk to the team that day. And I don't know if we needed to do it, but he called me up and said, "Can I come down and talk to the guys?"
Yeah.
Absolutely, John. Whatever you need, because he was so good.
Yeah.
But it was great, and he's in there, and just the pride that came through, and it was kind of a surreal moment for me. But it's hard to do. Like, you're, to be number 1 in the nation and be ranked, even if now we're ranked number 2 in the nation. It's crazy. But hey, it's a credit to our players. They're working hard. They're competing, and we've had some good bounces too along the way this season. But I love the team that we have now. The buy-in's been excellent, so we've gotten rewarded for that.
And you got a beautiful building.
We do, yeah. That helps with recruiting, and for sure, you need that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that. I can remember the days when I was here, class of 04, and everybody was talking about it, come in,
right.
and when it finally came, it was well worth the wait, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. There's a lot of things that have happened to kind of launch our program, but what President Leahy and Jack McDonald did to get this off the ground and running, and I think more important than us getting a rink is they did it right. They didn't. You could have gone halfway.
No.
We don't have enough money or whatever. I mean, they went all in on it, and really was a fantastic facility, and still is a fantastic facility.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. I wanted to also talk about something you did for me. There was a piece of advice that I learned kind of from you that you may not know about, but I want to share this. There's two things. One, you taught me that I'm not going to take NyQuil the night before an early bus ride to the airport.
That's great. That's good advice. Yes. Yeah.
So if anybody's out there, you're an athlete.
Yeah.
I was the broadcaster at the time, but I was getting over a pretty good cold that had got me down. And the next day, we were flying out at like 3:30 in the morning. We had to be on the bus to go out to Air Force.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I got to be ready for this trip. I got to be healthy. I got to make sure I'm well rested.
Yeah.
So I took the NyQuil, and I'll never forget getting on that bus and looking at you. And I was like, I know I screwed up, Coach. I know. And getting on that bus, but it was something I won't forget, and I appreciate you letting the bus wait.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked that I did let it wait. I was soft back then, because now we'd be gone. I'd be like, you better take an Uber. We'll meet you at the airport. I'm shocked I was nice enough to wait for you at that point.
Yeah, and then the other thing, you don't even know that you passed it along to me, but I'm going to pass this one along to anybody out there listening, is that in my days of the AHL, I remember traveling with you and the team, and you were telling somebody at the time, I think it was on a bus or something, that you hang your dress shirts in the shower so that then they get rid of the wrinkles faster. You don't even have to iron them.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's brilliant, and I've been using that trick ever since.
So Triple G, those are the two things you take away from me, was the NyQuil and the shower trick with the shirts. I thought I did better than that with you, but
you did.
It's okay.
I wanted to give you a little bit of humor here today,
the
behind the scenes stuff that people don't get to see.
Well, the shirt thing does work.
Oh, I know, it's beautiful.
You got to leave it in there sometimes for like 25 minutes, and it gets pretty hot. It's like a sauna in there, but I'm sure the hotel's not happy with the hot water bill, but it'll work.
So that was great. But speaking of advice, let's talk about what type of advice you would give to a high school or a prep school player right now who's trying to get recruited at the D1 level. What piece of advice would you give to them, or what makes them attractive?
Oh, that's hard to give them one piece of advice. I mean, I just think, for a lot of, like say 16 to 18, 16 to 19-year-olds right now, it's about commitment. How committed are you? Are you committed to your diet? Are you committed to what you're putting in your body? Are you, so there's a lot of kids, they'll go to the gym and they'll work pretty hard and they'll do this and that, and then they'll leave there and they go to McDonald's, and so you just wasted everything you did. There's a big discrepancy in commitment level. Even kids that we get here at Quinnipiac. The kids that are committed, like you see them get better, and then we have some kids that aren't, and they want to go and party and they want to do this and that, and it's hard to be successful at our level doing that. So I think it's about commitment to, if you're say 16, 17, it's your diet, it's your training, and even beyond that, like are you going to the weight room and working hard, or are you getting outside your comfort zone and really working hard? And I think that's a hard thing for a 16 to 20-year-old male to realize. There's a whole nother couple levels behind what they're already doing. And we see that with kids that come in here too. Kids are like, I'll grab freshmen halfway through the year and they're like, what do you think of the weight room and how we do things here and on practice? And they're like, Coach, man, I worked my tail off before I got here. I work hard in practice, and I got here and I wasn't even close. I didn't even know I could do this.
Wow.
And that's something that we're good at is pushing them outside that comfort zone and getting them to that next level. But there's so many other things of advice. I mean, even one about not even getting recruited here, but just in terms of, like, one thing, just a life lesson, just, social media, like, be careful what you post.
Right.
It's going to follow you around forever. Coaches are going to look at that. We look at that when we recruit kids. We want to look at their social media, and we've actually crossed a few kids off our list when we don't like their social media content. If we're like, hey, I don't need that in my locker room. I don't need that on my team.
That's right.
So that would be a big piece of advice too. Probably just a life lesson too, not just for athletics. Yeah.
And I've heard from other assistant coaches as well that I've talked to. Seeing some stuff on social can be a no. Straight up no.
Yeah,
so.
it's just a really good life lesson. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And then obviously we've talked a little bit about some of the success that you've had here, but you've also developed some great talent. Having players play in the NHL, Devin Taves comes to mind, Connor Clifton, Michael Pekka. Talk to me about the athletes that have come here and what it means to have them go play pro.
Well, it's always helpful from a recruiting standpoint to have guys in the NHL. Like right now, Devon Taves one of the better defensemen in the league. I think he's still a little bit under the radar, but people are starting to realize how good he is. But even more than that, and you mentioned Connor, and like Chase Brisky got a couple games this year. He's going to be a full-time NHLer, I think, at some point. But for me, it's about we need to develop players to be good here, and we need to develop good people. That they're going to go on. I'd love them all to play in the NHL, but let's be realistic, they're not going to do that or go play pro in Europe or whatever. But we need to make sure that we're developing good people and good character habits and good traits, and they'll be successful in life. And that's something that we take a lot of pride in as a staff, because even outside of my NHL guys, like we've got a lot of successful alums in the world, whether it's on Wall Street or CIA or whatever they end up doing, doctors, whatever. We want to be successful in life, and I think playing for Quinnipiac, like it's hard. It's hard to play for us. Like we demand a lot of them, and honestly, our players, they love it. They love the demands that are put on them. They love the structure, and they thrive in it. And that's one of the reasons we win.
Yep, that makes sense. I always like to ask my guests how they've been pliable in their career. So how you've adapted, you've been flexible. It could be technology, it could be recruiting, it could be the pandemic. How have you been pliable in your career?
Well, I think I'm always trying to adapt. I think that's something, probably one of my better strengths is that I realize like I don't know everything. I think in my early years I thought I did, and now I realize I don't know anything. So I'm always trying to, really I think good teachers are good thieves. Good coaches are good thieves. Like it's hard to reinvent the wheel. So find as many avenues as you can, whether it's reading books or watching things on YouTube or whatever. The big thing I've really been fortunate with the last few years, I've got on Team USA a few times. So got surrounded by phenomenal NHL coaches or NHL players or future NHL players, and learned a lot in those environments. I try to every year, meet with one or two, maybe even three NHL staffs, and whether it's the whole staff or just one coach, and exchange information. You can't really do a college coach to college coach because you're going to play them, and the NHL guys don't want to go NHL.
Right.
So then actually that happens a decent amount with NHL college interaction. It happens in the football and basketball worlds too.
Yeah.
But always trying to learn and pick up new things, and really like probably one thing that jumps to mind. Like I remember back in 2008, we changed our neutral zone. I won't get into the whole details of it, but I liked what we were doing. I went out and tracked down Barry Smith, who had been the associate head coach with the Red Wings when they won all the Stanley Cups with Scotty Bowman.
Yeah.
And he was the architect of this neutral zone. I basically stole his neutral zone, and I didn't know exactly how to run it.
Okay.
But I tracked him down, and I said, "Hey, can I hire you and bring you in for a couple days? Get like a professional development stipend, and we'll pay your expenses and everything." And he was more than excited. He was like, "Yeah, that'd be great." So Barry Smith came in, but that was one thing where I adapted, and that was a really good life lesson for me, in that like I was just blown away by how much I learned from him in just a 2-day span. And then it's hard with the pandemic now, but we try to do that, bring in 1 or 2 guests every summer that we're going to learn something from all walks of life.
Right.
And sometimes it's it can be analytic guys. One year was an analytic guy, and it was really helpful. So I'm always trying to learn, willing to learn, and honestly, like I wish it was easier to learn more. It's hard to. You get to this level, it's hard to get ideas, and because a lot of guys don't want to share.
Yeah.
I would say the pandemic was awesome from a standpoint. It was terrible, but the one positive of it was there were so many Zoom things. And Rod Brindamore, his son, plays for me. Rod reached out to me and said, "Hey," and I've done a few things with him, exchanges, and he said, "Hey, I'm on this Zoom call." He's like, "You would love this. It's 3 days a week. I'll get you on this. I'll get you on it." So I jumped on. First face I see is Scotty Bowman's.
Sold.
There was 17 NHL head coaches.
Wow.
A bunch of former NHL coaches, a bunch of AHL guys. There was only, at that point, I think it was just me and one other college guy.
Wow.
But it was great, and everybody had to present each week, and then you talked about different things. But it was a great 4 to 5 months, 3 days a week. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And the coaches were great in the terms they share. Usually NHL guys don't share. In that environment, they did. And I tell you what, you want to put a lot of pressure, though. When it was my turn to present, I was a little nervous, It was nerve-wracking. I can't remember all. One of the topics was power play, but I can't remember all my I presented a few times, but it was pretty nerve-wracking. Like, when you got Mike Babcock and Barry Trotz and all these great NHL coaches like watching you. You're like, you better do a good job.
Bring your A game.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. It was a good experience.
Absolutely. And then I want to kind of finish up with some memories and some moments for you that stand out. I mean, I look here at this building and I see the banners over there. I see the NHL players. I see the growth of the program. I can remember being at the Northford Ice Pavilion with you. Those chicken parm subs, by the way, were really good there. They were highly underrated.
Yeah.
But what stands out to you as your biggest accomplishment here at Quinnipiac?
Ooh. I don't know. That's a difficult question. I don't know if it.
Or a few things.
I don't know if I'd lock in on any one thing.
Yeah.
I will tell you one thing that I always just blows me away and I love. I think it's kind of a cool story. Was in 2016. We go to the Frozen Four. We have to play BC, even though we're the number one team in the country. We have to play Boston College, and they've got literally like 500 draft picks.
Yeah.
First rounders, like it was like, and we had two. You know, it was a mismatch. Like they had more talent than us, and we win that game. We played great.
I was there. I remember.
It was awesome. And the next day, I remember Kenny Sweeten telling me by our SAD saying, "Hey, we're trending number one on Facebook." And I'm like, well, what do you mean, like in Connecticut?
Right.
Like where? Like in the United States? Like what? He's like, no, in the world. And I'm like, whoa.
That's a good one. Yeah.
In the world, we're number one right now. He's like, yeah. I go, Kenny, come on, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I go, well, who's two? And he's like, Donald Trump. So that was all when they just started the primaries.
Oh wow.
And I think Hillary was 5, and I think Bill Clinton was 8. That was around the time when Bill Clinton got in trouble for meeting someone on the tarmac.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. The whole 9 yards. Yeah.
So anyway,
we were ahead of that. That's good though. All right.
But I remember follow up to that. Some people from the Quinnipiac Board of Trustees coming to me and saying, Rand, you can't even put a dollar value on what that's worth to Quinnipiac and in PR and marketing and stuff. But I wouldn't say that's my number one accomplishment, but I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I still don't know how it happened, but people were clicking on Quinnipiac all over the world.
And we'll take it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take
it. Speaking of that, let's finish up with how people can kind of get in touch with you or the program if they want to learn more about Quinnipiac. Speaking of that, they're searching around, they're trying to learn about the program. Where can they go to get information, and what's the best way to kind of start to develop their relationship with Quinnipiac?
Well, our website's obviously there's a lot of information there. Our social media platforms are good. You can learn a lot there. I think the way it is now with recruiting, if you're talking in that standpoint, we still get a lot of emails and kids reach out and stuff. We're not at that. Like, we try to reply to all of them. We get a lot. We get inundated.
Yeah.
We're at the point where we're going to go find our players. I think that helps if you're looking at Division III schools to get noticed, or maybe junior teams.
So sending off an email, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I don't know how much anymore it helps at the Division I level, just because there's so much knowledge out there with the website. There's a site called Instat, and they have everything. Like if you said, hey, I got a kid in Maine, can you playing at St. Dom's High School?
Right.
I can probably pull him up and watch his shifts.
Yeah.
20 years ago I needed that kid.
Yeah.
I needed him to send me video. Now you don't really need that. You can pull up, if they're at any decent level program, you're going to be able to get access.
Their games are online, yeah.
Pretty quickly, yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that, because that's a good tip too, because I think there's a lot of kids out there right now trying to figure out, how do I get through the noise? How do I get through the noise? And
well, you just keep playing well. I think the unique thing in hockey is, there's very rarely there's a lot of 18-year-old freshmen. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It is what it is. There's some 18s, but the 18s are pretty high caliber players, but pretty high draft picks usually. But most college kids are, for hockey, men's hockey, are coming in at, 19 or 20 or 21. You can certainly come at 18, but it doesn't happen a lot.
Yep.
It's pretty rare. So you got to be patient. You got to go play junior hockey, and there's a lot of great leagues. The USHL, the NHL, and the NCDC are usually the top 3 in the U.S. that produce players, and we get players from all 3 of those leagues. Certainly, we get players from Canada too. But if you want to play D1, you're probably going to have to get to one of those leagues or one of the comparable leagues in Canada.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I appreciate the time, Rand. This has been great. It's always good to see your face first in person for a long time. It makes a big difference. So I really appreciate you being on the podcast. And again, thank you very much for all the opportunities you've given me and the lessons which go far beyond NyQuil.
Oh, you're very welcome, Triple G. It's you know, it was a fun 4 years back. I know it's a long time ago, but it was a fun 4 years, and it's, you know, we don't have that anymore. We don't have, you know, we don't have the student that does that anymore. Not that anyone was going to tough big shoes to fill when you left, but I look back on that and just a unique opportunity for you, and I think it's great that Quinnipiac, you know, was able to give you that opportunity, and you've obviously thrived with it.
Yeah, and I'll give you the stats here. I'll end with this one stat. It's about 300 miles from Augusta, Maine to Hamden, Connecticut. It is about 900 miles from Sudbury, Massachusetts to East Lansing, Michigan.
Yeah, there you go. That's commitment right there. That's what I'm talking about, Triple G. You were committed. I loved it. I love it.
We'll end on that one. Thanks, Rand. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes from today's episode and catch up on recent episodes at pliablemarketing.com. We also encourage you to share topics and guest ideas by emailing our production staff at pliablemarketing@gmail.com. We love hearing from our loyal listeners and athletes who want to grow their brand. So jump in and be part of the podcast, because that's how we roll.